with government agencies. We protect the innocent. So we cannot be careless in an open release like that. You have to be very careful. The president himself has said that he wants maximum transparency and all credible evidence to be turned over to the American public so that everyone can make their own decisions. We're owed that. And we want any individual who's been involved in any way in the Epstein evils to be brought to justice as quickly as possible.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I know I've been gone a little bit, but the news has been getting boring lately, and I didn't want to just keep pounding the old thing. So during a coffee break this morning with some friends who are in the same political persuasion as myself, we got talking about the most recent things going on, and that happened to be the Epstein files. The Epstein files are nothing to joke about. I'm not gonna make light of them at all. The crime that Jeffrey Epstein has been reported to have been involved in are very serious, and everybody on this planet should take it serious. The protection of our young is the greatest thing we can ever do as parents, as responsible adults, as citizens around our children. The safety and the upbringing of them is the most important. So to have someone like Jeffrey Epstein walking around among us is very frightening. But as you could see there by the opening, Speaker Johnson thinks that the government is here to protect the innocent. He wants to make sure that nobody's name gets out that really shouldn't be released. And if there's a client list, as Jeffrey has stated, as Jesleen has stated, as Jeffrey Epstein's previous lawyer has stated, as Jeffrey Epstein's biographer has stated, they have seen the files. They have seen the different documents. They have seen everything. They know that the list exists. But Speaker Johnson says we have to be careful how quickly we release it because we have to protect the innocent. But that's not what Donald's saying right now. Here, I want you to listen to this.
Back in the spotlight.
I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say, let them have it.
That's a video of Trump standing next to Howard Lutnick. And Howard has this grin on his face. And I'm not quite sure what he's grinning about, but Donald seems to think that the Jeffrey Epstein thing is just, it's bad news or it's old news and only bad people are getting involved in it. But he seems to have a different take on it when he's talking with his administration. Pam Bondi said this.
I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files.
Now, Pam Bondi has changed her mind. I'm not quite sure who got to her. I could put good money on it. But suddenly, this is her take.
Go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
Now, we all know that there's been a very unusual string of circumstances that have been going along with Jeffrey Epstein. In a podcast that I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to bring out some more details from an interview with the Wired magazine's chief editor there, who is also a very technical person. Having spent the last 25 years of my life in IT, I listened to some of the things he said, compared them to what Pam Bondi is saying, and they don't match up, not even close. Pam Bondi states that a 1-minute piece of evidence missing from the government's untouched raw feed because of a system reset every night is, and I'll call it for what it is, it's BS. I've had the time to work with several different local police agents. And during my time with the 911 center in the local area here, we ran a recording that ran 24 hours a day. Actually, it ran a little over 24 hours, probably about 30 minutes, so that 15 minutes before yesterday's tape comes off, and 15 minutes before tomorrow's tape goes on, today's tape covers that time, 24 and a half hours. There's never a dead moment. There's never a reset. For legal purposes with the law enforcement, that's how they run it. And I come from a small burg. If we're running it that way, I don't see why federal prisons and federal agencies aren't doing the same thing. Pam Bondi's explanation is BS. But the gentleman I'm going to bring to you tomorrow has got some answers for you, and he's got some credible evidence that he was able to produce from U.S. government documents. But let's go on. Let's talk about all of a sudden, there's a bunch of stuff going on. It started, weeks ago. I'm sure you all remember the sudden overnight decision to bomb Iran. There was a distraction. Donald needed a distraction that he could say, look what I've done. This is the guy who said he would never start a war, that he was never going to involve our military outside our own country, that it was terrible. We needed to be out of Afghanistan. We needed to be out of everywhere. But suddenly, he's dropping bombs on Iran, supposedly wiping out successfully their nuclear capabilities. But, oh my goodness, now it's weeks afterwards, and you're not hearing a word about it. Where did all that enriched uranium go? Where did uranium that was enriched to 60%, one step away from becoming a nuclear weapon, where did all that news go? Where did all that information go? Because the people from the Middle East, the intelligence agencies all around England, Europe, and the Middle East are saying, whoa, it wasn't quite as successful as Donald is trying to tell you. But Donald needs a distraction. Then the files were going to be released. About 2 weeks ago, Pam Bondi said, they're on my desk. Suddenly, they don't exist. Pam Bondi has said that the only thing that's there is a bunch of pornography that was downloaded from the internet in Jeffrey Epstein's genre that he likes, and that it was just disgusting. And she puts on this feigned anger and disgust over the whole thing. That coming from a professional who's supposed to be seeing everything, although she isn't even qualified for the job, let alone, having seen much of anything. But suddenly, no, that file doesn't exist. Only to be followed up by, within the last 48 hours, Donald going on and saying, it's all a hoax. The file exists, but it was made up by Obama and Biden.
On what? On the
on the DOJ and FBI.
on what?
Review.
On what subject?
Epstein. Okay. On Epstein. Of the review of the file. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
A very quick briefing.
Did she tell you? What did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No. She's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that these files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden information. We went through years of that.
It's somebody else's fault again. That's the distraction. Then, in a need to really make a big splash headline with his base, I mean the dog whistle people from Fox News, he suddenly decides he's going to sue Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox News and the Wall Street Journal, for a story that was really a nothing story about Donald sending Jeffrey kind of like an obscene birthday card, a 50th birthday card, with his signature on it in a strategic location on a drawing that was there. It's a nothing burger story. But Donald suddenly had to bring that out, and he's suing Rupert Murdoch for $10 billion. Now, that's never going to go anywhere. I'm going to cut right to the chase. I'm not going to bury the headline on that story. He's never going to complete that because Rupert's going to want discovery, which means Donald has to testify under oath to any question that Rupert's lawyers want to ask. Yeah, he did that once with the E. Jean Carroll trial. He thought he was going to be cool with that. $85 million he lost on his testimony. He's never going to do it again. When Michael Cohen did a story on the Midas Touch, Donald came after him. And Michael, being the smart lawyer that he was, says, bring it on. I'm here. I want to go to discovery. Let's get to it right away. And Donald postponed the discovery. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then finally, hours before he was supposed to testify and give discovery evidence, he dropped the lawsuit. And Michael said, fine, let it go. I just proved who you really were. Well, now we're at Rupert Murdoch level. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know who Rupert Murdoch is, please read up on him. He's real easy to find. Read up on the Koch brothers. Read up on the people that are in that, shall we say, rarefied air of wealth. Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News. He owns the Wall Street Journal, along with several other different things, him and his boys, his sons. Rupert's not afraid of a $10 billion lawsuit because Rupert knows what he's got in his hands. Rupert's got a story that's been corroborated by every news service in the world. It's being carried all around the world. BBC, Al Jazeera, any United States news you can find. They're all talking the same thing, but Donald wants to sue Rupert. He wants a piece of Rupert's pie. He thinks that's going to help him out later on, and Rupert's going to do the same thing that Michael Cohen did. He's going to say, okay, discovery, because quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, Rupert Murdoch isn't afraid of $10 billion. He just paid out $790 million for a defamation lawsuit defending Trump. He doesn't care about that. He cares about the discovery. And when he takes Donald to discovery and Donald keeps postponing it and then dropping it, big, hard, serious level cash, that Rupert goes after him for malicious prosecution. And then the story will bust wide open. In the meantime, it's all about Epstein. Why, for dear God's sakes, why is Trump railing up against releasing one of his campaign promises that he was going to drain the swamp and get to the bottom of all the files for Epstein? It doesn't make any sense that now, all of a sudden, well, we've got to protect the innocent. Donald doesn't worry about protecting anybody but himself. Have you ever seen a moment when Donald wasn't willing to eviscerate anybody else if he thought it would help his base? Donald's base, people like Joe Rogan here, listen to this.
She said something about that there was like thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible crimes.
There is. And didn't the FBI dude say that there was nothing?
Kash Patel said there's nothing you're looking for. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to push back.
Right. No, of course. I
obviously,
understand.
he's saying what he has to say.
Right.
Mystery surrounds the Jeffrey Epstein files after Bondi claims tens of thousands of videos. Tens of thousands. Jesus Christ. The comment made to reporters at the White House days after a similar remark to a stranger with a hidden camera raised the stakes for President Donald Trump's administration to prove it has in its possession previously unseen compelling documents, or just bomb Iran. And everybody forgets
Just bomb Iran, yeah.
Everybody forgets about it.
And then people like Josh Hawley, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're all turning. I think the last count was 16 House Republicans wanted to take a vote along with the Democrats to immediately release the files. And what happened? Oh, that's right. Speaker Johnson shut down the House 24 hours early because a vote was being gathered together and he didn't want the vote to be called for. So he closed the session without any warning. And that session doesn't open up again until September 1st because this is August recess. Mike Johnson successfully hid the Epstein files and the Epstein client list by calling the session to end for the summer recess so that his House Republicans and the Democrats together couldn't get the files out because we all know who's on the list. And then, oh yeah, one other distraction. Well, let's make it two because something just came out literally as I was going to do this podcast. The first thing is that why is the DOJ suddenly interested in talking to Ghislaine Maxwell? Why are the number one and the number two in the DOJ at the prison right now talking to her? They didn't want to talk to her before. She was a convicted felon. Well, she was bad news. Suddenly, she might have something they want to know. Do you think that the number one and the number two in the Trump administration DOJ is going to bring anything she says to light? Ghislaine, it's called a dead man switch. If you stop breathing and you're not there to be able to trip the switch every so many hours or so many days, the data goes public automatically off of a server. If you don't know how to do that, call me. I know how to set it up for you. Because like you said today, you're in fear for your life. Yeah, that's what it's gotten down to, ladies and gentlemen. Now, some bad news. I would never wish this on anyone, but as I was getting ready to sit down to do this podcast, it has been announced that Mr. Black, and I forget his first name right now, Lawyer Black, who was Epstein's original lawyer during the criminal charges in Miami for his persuasion of crime, has suddenly died. Wow, how many people are going to die around Jeffrey Epstein before Donald ever decides he's going to release anything other than the MLK files? And honestly, I thought that was an insult to Martin Luther King Jr.'s family. 57 years after the crime was committed, suddenly Donald's interested in getting to the bottom of it. And let's face it, if you're of the black or brown persuasion, Donald doesn't normally have time for you. It'll only take something to trigger him for another piece of distraction. He'll make a story out of it. But right now, the brown people are taking the beating. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to again remind you that the 5051 Project and the 5051.com site are organizing nationwide and worldwide protests, the No Kings and such. You know, it's a legitimate group that really wants to provide us, we the people, with an outlet for our feelings, our emotions, and our need for a drive to save this country and save our democracy. Please check them out. 50501 in a web browser anywhere. Again, thank you for allowing me into your home. Thank you for listening to me. A special shout out to all my friends up in Canada. You went number 1 this week on my viewer list. Number 1 in Canada. Elbows up, guys. Stay that way. You have a right to be that way. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my rant. Tomorrow, again, I want to remind you that I've got a story coming out of Wired magazine that's not my digging, not my journalism, not my investigation. I'm going to bring you their story, and I'm going to bring it to you in a proper fashion. With that, I want to say thank you and have a good night. Good night, everybody.